evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast tonight. Here are the top headlines.
Malacanang directed all concerned government agencies to divert all international flights from Mactan Cebu International Airport to the Ninoy Aquino International Airport from May 29 to June 5.
The Japanese government plans to extend the COVID-19 state of emergency set to expire at the end of May in Tokyo and 8 prefectures to June 20 as the decline in infections has slowed and hospitals remain under strain.
The parents of Roman Protasevich, the journalist taken by Belarusian authorities from a Ryanair flight last Sunday, held a press conference at the Belarusian house in Warsaw. Protasevich's mother, Natalia, appeals to the press to broadcast her demands for the release of her son.
And members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ in Calgary, Canada, organizes a community blood donation drive through its INC Giving Project, plus an aid to humanity in Russia.
Malacanang directed all concerned government agencies to divert all international flights from Mactan Cebu International Airport to the Ninoy Aquino International Airport from May 29 to June 5th. Cebu Governor Gwendolyn Garcia earlier said she will meet President Duterte to defend Cebu as he may not be aware of the actual situation in the island. Let's listen in.
I am not in any way trying to disrespect the president. I respect him. He is my president. But this is an IATF guideline that has such huge impact on our OFWs and ROFs. I am not defiant. I'm just trying to look for the best possible way that we may implement policies that will further burden our people.
Wala naman po sigurong defiance. Ang nangyari po kasi sa Cebu, naubusan po talaga sila ng hotel, no? At ngayon lang po naaprubahan ng DOT na magkaroon ng mixed use sa kanilang mga hotels. So habang inaayos lang po natin yung arrival protocols at bago po itong memorandum neto, nagsara na ng 2 araw yung Cebu International Airport dahil wala nga po silang mga hotels na paglalagyan ng mga dumarating na OFWs at mga overseas Filipinos, no? Habang inaayos lang po yan ay i-reroute muna mga flights. So panandalian lang po yan at inaasahan natin na maayos na yung sistema at magkakaroon na tayo ng sapat na mga hotel rooms dyan sa Cebu. Well, dahil nga po rerouted lahat ng flights, no, kinakailangan dito po sila mag-quarantine muna bago sila pauuwiin ng Cebu.
Executive Secretary Salvador Medaldea issued a memorandum based on the recommendation of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Infectious Diseases and in pursuit of the national interest in preventing the further spread of the virus in the country. The memo also urges concerned agencies to enforce the current testing and quarantine protocols approved and issued by the IATF applicable to inbound international travelers in all ports of entry, regardless of any specific protocols that may be issued by local government units to the contrary.
Staying here in the Philippines, the Department of Health on Friday reported 3,017 new recoveries from COVID-19, bringing the country's total to 1,134,818, or 93.9% of all infections. In its daily COVID-19 bulletin, the DOH also reported 8,748 new infections, with the country's active cases now at 53,770, or 4.4% of a total of 1,209,154 cases since the start of the pandemic. Of the active cases, 93.2% are exhibiting mild symptoms, followed by asymptomatics at 2.2%, those with severe symptoms at 1.8%, those in critical condition at 1.4%, and those with moderate symptoms at 1.3%. It reported 187 new deaths, bringing the country's total casualties against COVID-19 at 20,566, or 1.7% of all infections.
And Australia's second biggest city, Melbourne, woke up to its first day of week-long shutdown to contain a cluster linked to the highly infectious Indian strain of COVID-19. Take a look.
The next 7 days in Victoria will be very challenging. And of course, we are very mindful of the distress and the difficulty that this will impose upon people right across Victoria as a result of what is being described, rightly I think, by the acting Premier as a circuit-breaking lockdown.
This lockdown is affecting us. Many of our families and friends can't work, so yeah, it's just very difficult.
I'm still going to work, so I still got a job, so I'm pretty fortunate, and they're not too bad, to be honest. It's 7 days.
Facing a cluster of 26 cases linked to the highly infectious Indian strain of COVID-19, authorities issued stay-at-home orders for Melbourne and surrounding Victoria State from midnight. It is the fourth time Melbourne has been plunged into lockdown since the pandemic began, including nearly 4 months of harsh restrictions last year. The cluster is believed to have begun with a traveler who returned to Australia from overseas despite a mandatory 14-day quarantine.
Meanwhile, the health minister in the UK says up to 3/4 of new COVID cases there could be of the Indian variant. Janelle Kasuga of our EBC UK Bureau has that story. Janelle.
Thank you, CJ. And yes, British Health Secretary Matt Hancock said that during a Downing Street briefing that the Indian coronavirus variant now forms up to 3/4 of new virus cases in the UK, as the government attempts to keep local outbreaks under control. Let's listen in.
The latest data show that the number of cases of coronavirus are rising. Yesterday, we saw 3,542 new cases, the highest since the 12th of April. The variant first identified in India, so-called B1617.2, is still spreading. And the latest estimates are that more than half, and potentially as many as 3/4 of all new cases are now of this variant. Of the 49 people who are in hospital with COVID in Bolton, only 5 have had both vaccine doses.
Earlier, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the country may need to wait for the lifting of all COVID restrictions in England, planned for the 21st of June. Prime Minister Johnson said the timetable remained on track, but would be governed by the science as more data on the variant comes through. Scotland, where there have been outbreaks of the Indian variant in areas including Glasgow, had 98 patients in hospital with COVID on the 26th of May, up from 58 on the 6th of May. Meanwhile, Bolton NHS Foundation Trust, which serves an area also hard hit by the India variant, has seen the number of patients in hospitals rise from 11 on the 9th of May to 241 on the 25th of May, the latest date for which figures are available. However, Hancock said the numbers of hospitalizations and deaths remain low, noting that current vaccines appear effective against the variant. On the 21st of June, the government hopes to move to the final stage of its roadmap for lifting lockdown. Step 4 would see all legal limits on social contact removed, Nightclubs would reopen and restrictions on large events and performances would be lifted. Back to you, CJ.
Well, thank you so much, Janelle, for your report there. Please do take care. And please tell us if there are any more developments happening there.
Thank you, CJ. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Janelle Kasuga. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the Japanese government plans to extend its COVID state of emergency set to expire at the end of May in Tokyo and 8 other prefectures to June 20 as the decline in infections has slowed and hospitals remain under strain. Dennis Liu reports.
Good evening, Alma and CJ. Japan will extend a coronavirus state of emergency in Tokyo and other areas on Friday until just a month before the Olympics, in a move that is likely to fuel concerns over whether the Games can be held safely. Yasutoshi Nishimura, the minister in charge of coronavirus response, said the overall level of infections continues to be very high. And considering the situation, he said they believe it is necessary to extend the state of emergency measures. The state of emergency was supposed to expire at the end of May in most places, but the government now says it needs more time to control a fourth wave of infections. On Friday, the government's advisory panel approved an extension until June 20th, just over a month before the pandemic-postponed Olympics open on July 23rd. A formal announcement is expected later. Meanwhile, Japan's public is still firmly opposed to holding the 2020 Olympics this summer. In recent weeks, leading businessmen and even a newspaper sponsoring the Olympics have called for the event to be cancelled. On Thursday, Naoto Uyama, chair of the Minor Japan Doctors Union, warned the Games could produce a Tokyo Olympic strain of coronavirus and urged a cancellation to prevent a disaster. Haruo Ozaki, head of the larger Tokyo Medical Association, with more than 20,000 members, said organizers would have to bar all spectators at a minimum. Overseas fans have already been banned, and a decision on domestic spectators is expected late next month. Even under the current state of emergency, sports venues in Japan are allowed to seat 5,000 spectators or 50% capacity, whichever is smallest. Officials have been trying to drive home the message that the Games are on and will be safe. They recently announced that the vast majority of those in the Olympic Village will be vaccinated. This is the latest for now. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu. We live in interesting times.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Now on to the U.S., where Governor Gavin Newsom announced major new efforts by the California state to encourage more Californians, especially those in communities that have been hit the hardest by the pandemic, to get vaccinated as the state works towards safely reopening next month. Californians will be eligible for $116.5 million in prize money for getting their coronavirus shots. Watch this.
The state of California today is announcing the most significant incentive program in the United States of America. We're putting aside more resources than any other state in America, and we're making available the largest prizes of any state in America for those that seek to get vaccinated. Today, we're announcing that we are setting aside incentive cards, 2 million incentive cards on a first-come, first-served basis for individuals that are eligible to get a vaccine, that seek to get a vaccine. That's effective today in the state of California. If you're 12 years or older, you can receive a $50 incentive card from Kroger's, Albertsons, or if you choose, just a traditional MasterCard $50 card that will allow you to utilize those dollars anywhere. If you're a family of 4, you do the math. If you're a family of 6, do the math. That opportunity avails itself to everybody until we exhaust those 2 million cards. So that is a $100 million incentive program, and we hope to distribute all those dollars before June 15th. And indeed, we are prepared, and we believe we will be ready for that June 15th reopening fully of the economy here in the state of California.
About 8 to 12. So for about today,
Governor Newsom was initially praised for his handling of the pandemic, but has come under growing criticism from some constituents, in particular small business owners, for keeping strict restrictions in place, even as other parts of the United States reopened more quickly. Despite those measures, California suffered one of the nation's worst winter COVID spikes. A petition calling for a vote on booting Newsom out of office has reached the required number of signatures to trigger a referendum. Newsom is widely predicted by analysts and pollsters to keep his job following the vote, expected to take place by November in a state dominated by his Democratic Party.
From the U.S. to Europe, Greece presented its EU digital COVID certificate to turn the page on coronavirus restrictions that have cramped Europeans' cherished freedom of movement. Take a look.
So what we have developed here with the assistance of the Commission is essentially what we call now the EU digital COVID certificate, which is nothing more than a complicated interoperability tool that integrates national data into an EU platform in a safe and protected manner. It is very, very simple. Essentially, it includes all the information that a member state would need to welcome a traveler without imposing additional restrictions. Proof of vaccination, a proof of negative test, PCR or antigen, or a proof of illness.
Of course, being cautious, that's why it's important to make sure that all the member states will have the same level of information. This is a great achievement. Indeed, it was not easy, but we worked a lot with the Commission, with the European Parliament, and we will be able to implement this COVID certificate in the next days, in the next weeks.
And we came a long way, because at the beginning of this process in January, there were very few believers in this idea, and there was lots of skepticism as to whether Europe could actually get there. I'm very happy that we managed to produce this big European agreement. This is a tangible proof that Europe can deliver when solidarity meets determination.
Has been issued. This is exactly how it looks like. And I mentioned before,
Certificate.
So the code for the verification application.
The EU's COVID certificate will show the bearer's vaccination status or whether they have immunity from a COVID infection they have recovered from or the result of a COVID test. EU members will be asked to allow entry to travelers who have received the required doses of one of 4 vaccines that have been approved by the European Medicines Agency: Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson. In principle, travelers with a COVID certificate will no longer have to remain in quarantine once they arrive in another EU member state. But exceptions are possible. If the epidemic situation in the country or region of departure worsens rapidly, or if a dangerous or untested new variant of the virus emerges, measures can be applied.
In other news, jailed Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai was among 8 democracy activists handed new prison sentences on Friday for attending protests on the 70th anniversary of the founding of Communist China that were followed by a sweeping crackdown. The finance hub was convulsed by months of huge and often violent pro-democracy protests in 2019, and the most serious challenge to Beijing's role since the city's 1997 handover. Lai, who is already behind bars for taking part in earlier protests, was given 14 months after pleading guilty to organizing an unlawful assembly on October 1st, 2019. He will now have to serve a total of 20 months for his multiple protest convictions. 7 other leading activists, including 25-year-old youth campaigner Figo Chan, as well as former lawmakers Li Chuqian and Leung Kwok Hung, were also given new jail terms.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. CJ and I will be back right after this break.
Humanda na kayo dahil this is gonna be an exciting battle para sa ating monthly finalist. This is Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 Singing Edition.
This program is supported by China Bank. Your success is our business.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back. The parents of Roman Protasevich, the journalist taken by Belarusian authorities from a Ryanair flight last Sunday, held a press conference at the Belarusian house in Warsaw. Protasevich's mother, Natalia, appealed to the press to broadcast her demand for the release of her son. Take a look.
Я хочу, чтобы вы услышали крик моей души сейчас, чтобы вы увидели слезы, чтобы вы увидели, как мне тяжело сейчас. Тяжело воспринимать эту абсурдную ситуацию. И я хочу, чтобы вы донесли.
Szanowni Państwo, ja chcę, żebyście wy usłyszeli mój krzyk mojej duszy, żebyście wy zrozumieli, jak nam jest teraz ciężko i jak my bardzo przeżywamy ten absurd i tą sytuację.
Я хочу, чтобы вы донесли до многих людей.
Szanowni
Я
Państwo,
умоляю, я взываю вас о помощи. Я кричу: спасите Романа, спасите моего сына. Вы прекрасно видели фотографии, вы видели видео, что вытворяют за стенками с нашими журналистами, что вытворяют за стенками этих тюрем с молодыми ребятами, которые выходили за свободу слова, которые выходили за демократию, которые хотели мирных, добрых перемен в нашей стране и лучше в нашей стране.
Now, Roman's father, Dmitry, said his son was a hero all through his life. He said he has fought for truth and he has related to people, and that's why Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has committed this terrible act. A day after the arrest, EU leaders on Monday decided to ban Belarusian carriers from European airspace and airports and recommended that EU carriers should also avoid Belarusian airspace. They've also threatened additional economic sanctions.
In a related news, Russia said Friday that Western countries were being irresponsible and endangering passengers by banning flights over Belarus in response to President Alexander Lukashenko's forced grounding of a Ryanair flight. Russia has denied entry to two European airlines because they plan to avoid flying over Belarus to get to Moscow. Air France and Austrian Airlines have both had to cancel services after their flight plans were rejected by Russia. Belarus sparked international outrage by dispatching a fighter jet Sunday to intercept a Ryanair flight from Athens to Vilnius, carrying opposition activist 26-year-old Roman Protasevich. Protasevich, who helped organize historic demonstrations against Lukashenko's long rule last year, was arrested along with his Russian girlfriend, Sofia Sapega, who is 23 years old. In response to the grounding of the European commercial jet, the European Union banned flights from Belarusian carrier Belavia and urged airlines based in the bloc to avoid flying over the ex-Soviet country.
In other news, the UN Special Envoy on Myanmar, Christine Schreiner Bergener, met with Japan's Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi. Take a look. Minister Motegi welcomed her visit and expressed his respect to the Special Envoy Bergener's efforts on the situation in Myanmar. He also explained Japan's efforts, such as engaging with the Myanmar military, collaborating with ASEAN and the G7, and implementing humanitarian assistance for the people of Myanmar through the World Food Program. In response, the Special Envoy Bergener explained the initiatives of the United Nations since the coup occurred in Myanmar, including her discussions with ASEAN member states in Thailand before coming to Japan. In addition, the Special Envoy expressed her hope that Japan will offer its assistance and expertise for turning around the situation in Myanmar. In response, Minister Motegi pointed out that it is important to achieve concrete outcomes, building on the 5-point consensus announced by ASEAN, and both sides concurred to continue supporting the efforts by ASEAN together to turn around the situation and working in close coordination on the situation there in Myanmar.
Now, Myanmar's economy and banking system have been paralyzed since a military power grab in February, and livelihoods have been lost after strikes and factory closures. In a country which in normal times exports rice, beans, and fruit, the World Food Program has warned millions will go hungry in the coming months. Take a look.
Now we don't lose at one lady, 20, or the Sata, we don't near a lady, Penny. Now that Alamura set we are Pimes, we know Namare. Sabon area, Tika, when we are warable, the Yauka, Ngara, the Yauka, Ngara, so Nayasu in St. Peter, who are the Yaula way, Logare. Idea one Logabi Nabale, now the Yaga Imuli Lonia or Nele St. Peter, Hula Muta or Kakeni, a Colon Nasu or Kakeni.
That's it, yeah.
Sao lâu đầu màu của nó ai đi lô làm thôi đấy ai bà sao đây lùi chi live video mấy đấy ai sao mà là ai nào chuyên dung là ai lùi live video sát đấy ai lùi sát đôi chân nó mình giao video xa là phải
rồi lúc này
အခုတော့ကျွန်တော်ကပြောလို့အဆင်ပြေတယ်အဲ့နိုင်ငံကြီးကိစ္စဖြစ်တဲ့ဟူကကျွန်တော်တို့မှအဆင်မပြေဘူးလဲမလဲပဲဘူးအခုတော့ကျွန်တော်ပြောသလိုပေါ့ဝတ်သားစားတဲ့နေရာမှာငပိလောက်ပဲစားလို့ရတယ်ငပိစားမယ့်နေရာမှာအဖြူတွေပဲစားရတော့ဗျစားနဲ့ ထမင်းနဲ့ပဲစားရတာအခုဒီနေ့ဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့မှာဒီနေ့ထမင်းကြောင်မချက်နိုင်
President Duterte has signed into law a bill seeking to divide Maguindanao, part of Bangsamoro's autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARM, into two provinces. Meanwhile, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque assured that President Duterte listens to all concerns on the proposal to extend the transition period in the BARM until 2025. Let's listen in.
Well, of course, the president listens to everyone. And the reason why they were there in the first place was the signing of a bill dividing the province of Maguindanao to Sur and to Norte. So that was the reason. But the president has always been consistent that he leaves the issue of extending the transition period in the BARM to Congress, and that both the BARM officials and the local government officials should coordinate closely with our senators and our congressmen. The president's position is he leaves it to Congress, because it is not something that the executive can decide on. So he has been approached by both pro and anti, and his consistent advice is coordinate and talk to the senators and the congressmen. Although, as a matter of fact, in the Senate, our Secretary Galvez has spelled out the pros and cons of the extension of the transition. But whether or not, however the Senate will decide, well, that will be dependent on the ultimate wisdom of both the Senate and the House.
Republic Act number 11550, signed by the President on Thursday, divides the province of Maguindanao into two distinct and independent provinces known as Maguindanao del Norte and Maguindanao del Sur. Both provinces will have corporate powers and general powers that include having a common seal and having the power to create its sources of revenue and to levy taxes, fees, and charges, among others. Maguindanao has a population of 1,173,933 according to the 2015 census. The Commission on Elections will supervise a plebiscite within 90 days from the effectivity of the law, and the plebiscite will allow Maguindanao residents to ratify the law. If the law is ratified, residents will elect governors, vice governors, members of the provincial board, and other provincial officials during the May 2022 elections.
Cyclone Yaas leaves behind a trail of destruction, with homes and shops badly damaged after hitting India's eastern coast on Wednesday. The latest cyclone forced the evacuation of more than 1.5 million people in the eastern states of West Bengal and Odisha.
ইয়াসের প্রভাবে বাঁধ ভেঙে গেছে নদী থেকে, দিয়ে প্রচণ্ড জল, আমাদের ঘরে কোমর অবধি জল ঢোকা যাচ্ছে না। ফলে আমরা বাইরে বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছি, বন্ধুদের মানে মামার বাড়ি বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছি আমরা ঘর থেকে।
One of the reasons that we are seeing more storms and cyclones in the tropical regions, especially regions like Arabian Sea and all, is because of ocean warming, rapid ocean warming. This is the fourth consecutive year when a cyclone has formed during the April-June season in the Arabian Sea region, and this might be the third one which is moving very close to the west coast for this season again, and that means we need to be better prepared for the west coast.
Barely a week after Cyclone Tauktae claimed at least 155 lives in western India, Cyclone Yaas forced the evacuation of more than 1.5 million people in the eastern states of West Bengal and Odisha. The storm hit on Wednesday with torrential rain and howling winds gusting up to 155 kilometers or 96 miles an hour, equivalent to a Category 2 hurricane. Waves the size of a double-decker bus pounded the shore and swamped towns and villages along the coastline, exacerbated by a higher-than-normal tide because of West Bengal Disaster Management Minister Javed Ahmed Khan told AFP that rescue efforts were being complicated by villagers refusing to leave their homes because of fears about coronavirus. Milan Mondal, a senior forest official, told AFP that the high waves had also swamped a crocodile breeding center and tiger reserve project area in the Sunderland.
Meanwhile, the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo city of Goma was eerily deserted on Friday, a day after tens of thousands of residents fled after warnings that the nearby Mount Nyiragongo volcano may erupt again. Goma, located on the shore of Lake Kivu, has been gripped by fear since Africa's most active volcano erupted on Saturday, leaving 32 people dead now. Scientists monitoring the volcano have warned of a potentially catastrophic scenario, a limnic eruption that could smother the area with suffocating carbon dioxide. Now, Goma was bizarrely quiet early Friday after the authorities ordered a preventive evacuation, triggering an exodus that choked roads out of the city. All the shops were closed and just a handful of people and some motorcycle taxis were on the streets. Security guards were deployed around the local mansions, their windows shut on the shore of the lake.
Eagle News will be back with more updates. Please don't go away.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision-making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
The Philippine Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, Secretary Silvestre Bello III, ordered a temporary ban on the deployment of overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, bound for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, following reports that the workers were made to pay for all expenses related to COVID-19 upon their arrival in the oil-rich country. In a memorandum which states, and I quote, the department received reports that departing OFWs are being required by their employers or foreign recruitment agencies to shoulder the costs of the health and safety protocol for COVID-19 and insurance coverage premium upon their entry in the kingdom, end quote. Bello said deployment will resume after the matter has been clarified. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia's General Authority of Civil Aviation on Monday, May 24, issued new guidelines requiring non-Saudis to undergo quarantine for 7 days at a facility supervised by the country's Ministry of Health. The cost of this 7-day quarantine will be included in the price of the airline ticket the agency had announced. Non-Saudi travelers must also present a health insurance policy that covers coronavirus. Exempted from the mandatory quarantine are individuals who have received the complete regimen for COVID-19 vaccines, from Pfizer, BioNTech, Oxford AstraZeneca, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson.
In other business news, President Joe Biden urged generational investment in U.S. infrastructure to keep the economic superpower ahead of China while ensuring that less wealthy Americans are not left behind. Speaking at a community college in Cleveland, Ohio, the president said his $1.7 trillion American Jobs Plan is an opportunity to capitalize on the rapid U.S. recovery from COVID-19 shutdown. Take a look.
We must be number one in the world to lead the world in the 21st century. It's a simple proposition. And the starting gun has already gone off. We can't afford to fall any further behind. Now's the time to build the foundation that we've laid. It's not just we want to deal with the environment. We want to lead the world in exports of these new technologies instead of ceding the global market and job creation to the Chinese. They're building 20 times as many electric vehicles as we're doing now. And the technology that goes with that. What are we doing? It's millions of jobs in China instead of here. Eat some chocolate chip.
Pressuring his Republican opponents in Congress, President Biden said the infrastructure bill and another proposal for spending $1.8 trillion on education and social services were generational investments akin to state-funded electrification in the 1930s and the building of highway networks in the 1950s. He also warned that without that level of government intervention at home, U.S. power abroad will suffer as Chinese and EU infrastructure and research efforts surge ahead. To fund his spending, President Biden has proposed canceling a Trump corporate tax cut and closing loopholes used by the richest 1% in the country to avoid many taxes Republicans are adamantly opposed. Meanwhile, Biden clearly sees the debate as an opening on the domestic political battlefield where he has positioned himself as champion of ordinary workers. While underlining that he is a capitalist, President Biden said the economy has become skewed to the very rich.
Collaboration with industry. So it is a part for training our students. That's what.
In other news, S&P Global Ratings affirmed its BBB Plus ratings on the Philippines after noting the domestic economy's recovery, which it expects to accelerate in 2022, partly on the COVID-19 or COVID vaccination rollout. It also kept the ratings outlook stable, which is attributed to its expectation that the domestic economy will achieve a healthy economic recovery and that its fiscal deficits will decline significantly over the next 2 years or 3 years. It says it affirmed the ratings because it believes the Philippines will continue to have good economic recovery prospects once the COVID-19 pandemic is contained and that the government's fiscal performance will strengthen accordingly, that it said in a report. The debt rater expects a recovery for the domestic economy this and next year, with a growth forecast for this year at 7.9%, higher than the government's 6 to 7% target.
Nike said today it parted ways with Neymar last year after the superstar Brazil attacker refused to cooperate in a good faith investigation as the company probed an employee's claim that he sexually assaulted her. The apparel giant said in a statement that its investigation into the alleged 2016 incident, which was reported to the company in 2018, was inconclusive. In a Wall Street Journal article reporting the assault allegation, a spokeswoman for Neymar said the player denies the claim. Neymar Jr. will vigorously defend himself against these baseless acts in case any claim is presented, which did not happen so far, she said in a statement, adding that Nike and Neymar split for commercial reasons. Nike said otherwise in its statement. The Wall Street Journal reported, citing documents and unnamed people, that Nike hired lawyers at Cooley LLP to conduct an investigation starting in 2019 and decided to stop featuring Neymar in in marketing during the probe. In its statement, the company said it was prepared to investigate in 2018 when the woman first came forward, but, quote, respected the employee's initial desire to keep this matter confidential and avoid an investigation.
The first round of the NBA playoffs is underway, but before they started, ABC correspondent Aljamain Santos was in the Bay Area for the play-in game where the Golden State Warriors took on the Memphis Grizzlies. He spoke to basketball fans to get their take on the play-in tournament format that they implemented this year. Take a look.
Ever since its inception as a solution from Commissioner Adam Silver, the play-in tournament for teams have had mixed reactions among players and fans. Before the pandemic that swept the world, it was the top 8 from the East and West that determined the playoffs. But that has become a thing of the past.
So far, I have mixed feelings about it, but personally, I kind of like it because I like the intensity and the excitement of the tournament.
Yeah, I'm a fan because it at least gives a few more teams a chance to kind of snag that playoff spot, even if they don't really place in the top 7 or so. Yeah.
I like how it kind of raises the competitiveness of the NBA because the low seeds really have to earn it to get their spot in the playoffs. Yeah, and I think it's just overall very entertaining to see teams compete for that spot.
I kind of like how it kind of gives teams I guess in a way a second chance to kind of qualify, and I think it also creates some pretty good gameplay because people are kind of fighting for that once or those few spots so that they can go play and compete in the playoffs. I think there is an advantage for the bottom seeds because then again, they probably wouldn't have gone to playoff seed if they don't have this tournament.
I definitely think there's a bit of a disadvantage because they have to play so many games back to back, and that takes a lot of energy from them. And so all the well-rested higher seeds probably have a big advantage over that.
The Memphis Grizzlies faced the Golden State Warriors to determine the 8th seed in this play-in tournament, and the Grizzlies came out the victor to solidify their spot. Despite a rallying Warrior team in overtime, they were unable to stop the Grizzlies from scoring. When asked about the playoff-like atmosphere of the play-in tournament for guys like Jordan Poole and Juan Toscano, Coach Kerr had this to say about how important it was for them to experience it. Yeah, they both were great. As I mentioned, the last 3 games have been playoff games. Basically, both those guys played big minutes and big roles and did a fantastic job. Coach Taylor Jenkins of the Memphis Grizzlies has this to say about playing in an elimination game on the road. It's an awesome feeling. This is what you play for. This is what you work for all season long. Obviously, we got a great feeling the other night in front of our home crowd 2 nights ago. Our guys have always embraced the win mentality and the energy that it takes to go and win on the road, especially when everyone's against you. So that togetherness we talk about, it needs to be on full display. We've done it in a majority of the season on the road, but we need that tonight. Obviously, this is going to be a rocking environment. Their home crowd's unbelievable. Hopefully, we feed off their energy and understand it's our time to come up and show up on the road and try and get a big victory. Whether it be the traditional seeding or the new play-in tournament, fans and players enjoy the high competitive basketball that surrounds the new play-in tournament format. Aside from the higher levels of stress for the players, they gladly welcome the challenge to give fans what they enjoy the most: competitive basketball at the highest level. The Memphis Grizzlies move on to face the top-seeded Utah Jazz in the upcoming playoffs. From the Chase Center in San Francisco, California, I am Aljamain Santos, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, Aljamain. Meanwhile, members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ in Calgary, Canada, organized a community blood donation drive through its INC Giving Project. Here's Eagle News correspondent Tiffany Alisaces. Tiff?
In this time of uncertainty, the world is always continuing to find the good in every situation. And we are always looking for ways to help many individuals around the world. We can do so by donating blood. Donating blood can help many individuals with different health conditions, such as those who have recovered from COVID-19. With proper protocols and regulations followed, members from the Church of Christ or Iglesia Ni Cristo continue to help in volunteering their time to help those in need. through the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation and the INC Giving Project, launched by the church. These members were able to book an appointment with the Canadian Blood Services and donate throughout the month of May, and continue to do so on a regular basis. Donating blood means that someone, somewhere, will be getting the help they desperately need. Not only that, donating blood can also help you. It can reveal potential health problems, reduce harmful iron stores, lower your risk of a heart attack, keep your liver healthy, and many other benefits. Donors are needed every day. If you are eligible to donate, I suggest you go to your nearest blood donation center and you can help save someone's life. In Calgary, Canada, Tiffany Elisasis, we live in interesting times.
From Canada, we go to Russia, where the members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo participated in an Aid to Humanity event there in Moscow. Emmy Coloma of our ABC Russia Bureau has that story.
The members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo participated in an Aid to Humanity event here in Moscow, Russia. The event was led by the ministers in the church, and through this event, they were able to express their love and care for the community through voluntary works. The members gave some goodwill bags and extended their help to the guests that were in attendance. As the event continued, the guests were also able to hear the words of God through a short lecture held via online video conferencing. Despite the ongoing pandemic, the church member was still able to invite their friends and loved ones, even though they are far from each other. This event has given joy and happiness to everyone in attendance, and the members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo are thankful to those who accepted their invitation and look forward to many more activities like this to continue to share their faith and to help the community. Reporting from Moscow, Russia, I'm Amy Coloma, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Emmy Coloma from our EBC Russia Bureau.
We're definitely looking forward to more activities like that everywhere in the world. So look out for those.
Yes.
That's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. Please join us again tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate,